The 17th of August. Good evening. You're locked into CHOI 105.5. A very special and important edition of Soca Therapy. The doctor's in. The doctor has some guests. We have Janelle and Michelle from Toronto's Masquerader Association. We'll be joined by the head of the FMC, the Festival Management Committee, as well as somebody from the Toronto Masqueraders Band Leaders Association. Right? All right, good. TMBA. So we're all going to have a little panel discussion talking about Toronto Carnival, some positives and negatives surrounding it. So we urge you to join the conversation, send out some messages via social media, such as Twitter, Facebook, hashtag Soca Therapy, so we see it. Let us know some of your thoughts, some of your concerns. Want to deal with some constructive criticism and some positive feedback concerning a carnival that we love here in Toronto. Had to start off with some tunes from Barbados Crop Over because after the last edition of Toronto Carnival, seems like there might be a mass exodus to Barbados Crop Over. So give it some music to get you familiar in case you want to book a flight. But for the rest of us that want to defend Toronto Carnival, we're going to have a healthy discussion about what we love and how, to repair it. So let me give you one of the anthems for the road. All of the masqueraders, everybody who loves soca music, this one is for you. Let me go.
We headed down that road. Party mode. I don't want to sleep no more. That's for sure. I'm on the floor. I'm feeling for this haunted feeling. Yeah. This haunted feeling. Yeah. This haunted feeling.
Dubois says this is going to be phenomenal, this discussion that we're going to have here today concerning the state of Toronto Carnival. So I'd just like to introduce everybody, and I'll actually let everybody go from my left. We'll start with you, Bryce.
Yeah.
Just introduce yourself and your position and so on.
Sure. This is Bryce Aguitor from the band Carnival Nations, band leader Carnival Nations. I'm also the president of the Toronto Mass Bands Association.
All right, perfect. Thank you.
And Denise Herrera-Jackson, the CEO of the Festival Management Committee.
Thank you. And
good evening, Janelle Hills, chairperson of the Toronto Masqueraders Association.
Perfect. Thank you very much. So what I wanted to do, I guess to start off, we'll start with you, Bryce. What do you think were some of the successes and challenges of, I guess, Toronto Carnival in its current state?
Start off with a big question.
Yeah. One time. I don't waste time.
Successes, I would say definitely the fact that the King and Queen came off pretty good. The Kiddies definitely was a success from a change in venue from the last couple of years. And I'd also say that the numbers of masqueraders has actually increased. So the last couple of years, the masquerader count has been on the decline. And this year we saw bands like Salina hitting over 4 nations, 2, and other bands creeping up. But at the end, I think masquerader count was probably close to about 10,000. So it was an increase on last year. So I'd say that those were definitely positive signs.
Okay. And one of the challenges, in your opinion?
Well, I think there's 2 major challenges which you could point out, which is the securing of the festival, which has always been a challenge for years, and which is the non-masqueraders on the parade route. And secondly, the other challenge would be where everything kind of went chaotic, in terms of the logistics of the festival.
Okay, so Denise, in your opinion, I guess some of the same questions, successes and challenges, if you had to pick.
I would echo what Bryce is saying, because we've got this major festival, which is I should say, it's a point of passion and love for people in our community. And it's that passion that comes out with the participation by people, the masqueraders, within the festival, the production of the costumes. I mean, the creativity. To me, that is something that has to be admired. And it is so important when we talk about the challenges that face us, that we have to really and truly ensure that people appreciate the major efforts that we all put together to make this festival happen. Definitely, many of the events came off really well. We know we have a major challenge with the parade. We work with the TMBA, and it's so important for us to work with the TMBA and also the Ontario Steel Pan Association. Those are the participants, to make sure that everything, whatever we have said, we've planned, we are going to make sure it happens. And most importantly, with my friends to the left, the masqueraders. Very, very critical that they have come in and they are part of the festival, and they're a critical part of the festival, and we have to make sure that people really and truly respect them on the road.
True. So that is what you would say is one of the challenges, that they're not...
I would say that's one of the challenges in the biggest event, which is the parade.
Okay, all right. And Janelle?
Two major things that I want to, two important points, I should say. The skirting of the trucks, which was an issue that we raised on the program the last time. I'm happy to say that my own personal experience, and as well based on the survey feedback, a lot of people noticed that there were more skirted trucks this year, not only just covering the wheels, but actually I saw a number of trucks going down that had actually full drapings down the sides
right.
of the trucks as well. So definitely a step in the right direction of securing at least in the band. When you have, to Bryce's point, 4,000 plus masqueraders in your band, and you only have a certain number of music trucks, every masquerader wants to be around a music truck, right?
Right.
Very important to keep that secure. And as well, a lot of feedback with respect to a positive experience had by the masqueraders inside the C&E grounds. That was a very, very big piece of feedback that I was really happy to see. A lot of people managed to enjoy themselves during that portion of the Grand Parade.
For sure. Okay, I guess the next question I have for you guys, I know me being a DJ on the truck, there was a lot of miscommunication, a lot of people just weren't sure. It seemed like you don't know who to ask exactly. A lot of the people in a security uniforms weren't even sure where things were placed and so on. So I guess my next question is in the form of education. And in that sense, I mean, for everybody, because even in some of the popular Caribbean weeklies, it was advertised as the biggest party, right? So when you call the Parade of the Bands a party, it leads to people feeling, well, we could all participate, if you understand. So I guess for me, what I would like to know from Bryce, as somebody who puts on and spends, practically a whole year from the theme to the creation of the costumes and putting it all together, how do we try to rectify what has become a stigma with our community and even with the Grand Parade?
Well, I think there's a heavy component. This is something that we've been talking with the FMC for quite a while, of education. I think we're the only festival that puts up fences. If I think through a lot of the carnivals that I go to, there's barricades, there's a rope, but I think we're the only festival that actually applies in-the-car fencing. That's some serious, heavy fencing, and there are people who cut through that. You know what I mean? They come down there with bow cutters, they come down there with wire cutters, and they cut through that. That's a problem, because at the end of the day, you spend your time, I spend my time to lure people into playing mass, which is the whole point of the festival. The point of the festival is a parade. It shouldn't be labeled as a party. It should be labeled as a parade, the same way that you have Pride, the same way that you have the Santa Claus, St. Patrick's Day. If you're not in a costume, you shouldn't be on the route, right? We had an incident last year, unfortunate incident of a young fella, not in a costume in a parade, and that stuff like that happens. You need to basically respect what it is that's happening out there. If you want to be on the parade route, there's 9 to 10 bands. Join a band, put on a costume, have fun. There's a lot of investment right through from all the stakeholders to put on to make sure you have a parade. And if you are in a jeans, in a t-shirt, and you're on the parade route, you're the problem.
Okay.
Right? You are the problem because you're creating problems for the bands, you're creating problems for security, you're creating problems for the organizers, the police. You know, don't blame the police, don't blame the city if they want to shut down the festival. Because they're looking at that stuff. They have cameras, they have overhead footage, and they look at it and they just shake their head. And they go like, this is uncontrollable. You know, and some of the words that Denise could echo is that, you know, like, this shouldn't be happening.
Right.
You know, right? So if they shut it down because of security issues, you know, blame yourself.
So, Denise, from your perspective and the FMC, is it really uncontrollable? Is this something that we are just seeing spiral out of control and it has to be something that is almost boycotted or to take away from the city in order for us to try to fix it? Or is it something that is solvable and we can rectify what has been going on?
I would say basically that we have to address those major issues. I'll give as an example. We've got people who said they've been injured on the parade route, and I was reading a deposition just recently, and the person said that we never said that they could not walk on the parade route.
Okay.
So this person said that he went on the parade route and was injured. Now, how difficult is that? We talk continuously that this is a parade, and we know how important the parade of the bands is to the participants. So when you have people coming in with those skewed statements, you have to really and truly think to yourself, what other message does one have to give to ensure that there's that respect for the cultural component, what this parade represents? What do you have to do to ensure that? I mean, it becomes critical, and it's becoming much more critical that we have to start doing all the education, engaging the TMA. I know we've been engaged since last year. They've been coming to our meetings and all of our planning meetings. We have the TMBA and all the other people who are involved. But I think as an organization, we really and truly have to say it's not a party, it's a parade, and people have to take it seriously. And they have to understand the risk that they are putting on the masqueraders and on the TMB and all of us with the behavior that they display.
So
the stormers display.
Right. But is there a way to actually rectify it, or is it, as Bryce said, uncontrollable? Is this something that we have to let get to a very negative place in order, you know what I mean? Like how, I guess this is what I'm just trying to figure out from the FMC perspective, and I'll ask the same thing to Janelle.
The risk of getting to a negative place would be detrimental to everybody here. That's what I'll have to say. It would be detrimental to everyone.
So you don't see it as being uncontrollable? You think we can fix it?
It has to be something that has to be fixed, has to be addressed, and especially based on what we had seen this year. Because, for instance, I have to ask Bryce, what is the magic of the stage?
Well, I mean, the stage is the focal point for the bands in terms of, you know, the masqueraders to do their parade in front of the judges, right? So it's a focal point that is a climax point. And then afterwards, it's kind of like an unwind, right? So you want a party, you know, everybody understands the, you know, the emphasis on the stage, because that's where the band is scored. And people tend to put a lot of emphasis and respect the masqueraders. You probably won't get masqueraders to do a lot of stuff that you ask them to do later on the road. But in front of the stage, you know, we could move sections. Like we've moved a whole section through a whole band and line it up because we thought the colors were wrong, right in front. You know, this year we got people to do certain participations within the masqueraders to get them involved. And I organized that as they were going on stage. You know, told them this is what I want them to do. You know, that kind of stuff. So people are engaged, and they understand, and they know the euphoria, and they know that how it's a competition. So they want to win as much as we want to win, because they want to have that kind of bragging, right? No matter what band it is, right? You want to have that title. So they respect that, the masqueraders.
But some of what I've discovered is that the onlookers also want to be around the stage. And it's how do you tell them that you are impeding the performance, you are impeding the activity, you are impeding the judging, and that's the kind of information that's so important to get out there to people. Understand what's happening. We know, it's an exciting time. You want to see what's happening, but we have to make sure that they've got to appreciate what is being done and to give the masqueraders and the TMBA the opportunity to do what they are there to do on that day.
Right. So, Janelle, I know that, and come a little closer to the mic. We're having a little problem with the levels there, but I guess from your perspective, I know that on your page, on your Facebook page there, you had a survey, and a lot of people were talking about their experience and what they enjoyed and so on and so forth. So if you could touch base about that and allow people to, I guess, see what hundreds of masqueraders have responded.
Absolutely. So the survey results that I have in front of me are as of 5 p.m. on August the 16th of this year. We've got 323 people that answered our survey, so we're really happy about that. Of the respondents, about 90% of them played with Carnival Nations, Tribal, Revelers, and Saldina, so the big bands. Definitely shout out to all the bands. Thank you for participating. 10% of the information collected came from Connections, Fantasia, Scotiabank, and Expats bands. We also had some feedback from the steel bands as well. We are still encouraging people to fill out the survey, but the majority of people that responded did mention that they had the best time inside of the CNE in terms of masqueraders. That was the point, that they had the most fun in terms of being able to display their costumes and have a good time with their friends and things of that nature. So we definitely want to give credits to how things flowed through there. To touch on some of the other points with respect to the marketing of the parade and things of that nature, we wanted to stress, as well as the Masqueraders Association, that it's a collective effort of everybody to educate. We've done the best that we can with our social media forums. I think that's a huge advantage with social media. You can reach a lot of people with information. So we want to definitely stress the Respect the Mask campaign. That's something that we launched and we are really passionate about, and we're happy to hear that a lot of people are using the term, and it's been something that's been on social media a lot more recently. So thank you to everybody for using the hashtag. But absolutely, it's not an all bad news story. This is something that can be corrected, it can be improved, and it just takes the collective effort of everybody to work together and push a unified voice. I appreciate the hard work that the band leaders do. Bryce, as my band leader personally, he does spend a lot of time and effort making those beautiful costumes, and the FMC work is not unnoticed as well. We recognize that it's a difficult job. We want to make sure that everybody's working together for a common purpose, and that the main points of concern are the ones that are addressed.
Yeah, definitely. So we're here having a panel discussion about the Toronto Carnival experience. There was a lot of negativity online. I myself even went on a rant or two, because it was, as we all said, like, we're very passionate, as Denise had mentioned, about this, and it's something that I call it almost like our New Year's Eve then. This is when our year starts. It's Caravan, it's the parade, Toronto Carnival, the actual parade, that element, and this is how it feels, So I think what I would like to touch on next is, where do we kind of go from here? I mean, this is just one forum. I mean, I've always had that mindset of, I do soca therapy, I just play music, I don't want to get caught up into the talk about it, but I felt that we need to do something about this, and I hope that we have more panel discussions and, invite other people to discuss this and see what kind of solutions we can have moving forward. But yeah, I guess, Denise, from the FMC standpoint, I would like to know, I mean, I know we had a new route this year, having 2 stages, I guess more within the CNE, if I'm not mistaken, or 2 judging points, not 2 stages, 2 judging points. So from your perspective, did the new route help? Did it hinder? What were the advantages, the disadvantages from this?
So we made the decision to have the 2 stages in discussion with the TMBA, because we wanted to make sure that the bands were not going to be locked into the exhibition place. That was so critical to us, because, as you know, we are using another person's facilities. We are using that. And based on that, we've got to get out of this place at a certain time. And we wanted to make sure that we respected all the efforts that everyone made to make this happen. So that was ineffective in a way to make sure that we got all the bands on the Lakeshore so that they'd be there and be judged. We've met with the TMBA since the parade, and we are going to be working together to make sure what we are going to do for next year's parade. So we normally have a route committee, and I know whoever is on the executive or whoever is in the TMBA, they would form, the route committee. And I know last year we were talking about getting you guys to come in so that you can come in and walk the route and see what the plans are. As Janelle says, it's a collaboration, and that's the way that we have to ensure moving forward. In terms of, even as you say, Janelle, communication, using the hashtag respect the masqueraders, I guess we all have to start talking in that terminology.
Right.
Very, very important moving forward, and then making sure that whatever as a group that we do, we are ensuring that, one, we of ourselves respect each other in
Right.
terms of decision making, and ensure that what happens, as you're saying, we know in an exhibition place you can do certain things. So we just want to make sure that everyone is on the same page, because we all want to be a success. As we're saying this, as you say, this is our New Year's Eve. I understand the ritual that people have around this thing. They talk about pre and post. If
True.
you know, people spend a lot of money. I mean, you talk about the multiplier effect. We talk about the money that the masqueraders spend. We talk about the money that the TMBA expends to put on this show. So why aren't we not proud? Why aren't we not excited? Why aren't we not engaged to really and truly display this spectacular event to our city and to the world with respect and caring?
Okay. And I guess Bryce, representing the TMBA, in my memory, I don't know if we've had the amount of bands not be judged in past years. So from your perspective, I guess with the new route and trying to get, as Denise was mentioning, everybody out onto the lakeshore at a certain time, what is your opinion of the route and the two judging points and so on?
Well, the route worked too well. Simply,
Too well.
it worked too well. They wanted we wanted everybody out on the route. The decision was to have the first stage, which is Mass on the Move. So we moved the Mass.
Okay.
So everybody got out. So by 1:30, all the bands were out. All right. The problem that created was there was nothing left inside the CNE for the VIPs, for the patrons who came to see Mass.
Okay.
All right. So the process of moving the Mass, which was the purpose of the first stage, it worked a bit too well. So at the end of the day, we've had dialogue, and I'm not going to get into the dialogue we had with the FMC about this, but we have to look at it as this is a very simple parade. It's not rocket science. It's not ad maths we're doing here, right? For anybody who went to school in Trinidad, you understand it. We want to move people from X position to Y position in a nice, orderly fashion, be judged along the way, and have fun, right? So taking that into consideration, trying to make things too complex, you might shoot yourself in the foot. So in essence, we might have to just go back to basics, which is have a stage at a strategic point, and the Mass will move itself. We will move itself. There are certain things which we have seen and we have talked about over the years that will hinder Mass from moving. And, the FMC knows what that is, and they did a good job addressing it this year. That's why it moved too well, right? So in the natural flow, I mean, it's sometimes you have to fall a little bit to pick yourself up to understand, where you should go. And as Denise and both Janelle said, it's a collaboration. So, we put forward our ideas, and, we tend to be a little bit more intimate with the knowledge of a movement of a band and what works and stuff like that. So, we look forward to the last couple of years getting us to the point where next year we know what we're supposed to do.
Okay. And Janelle, from your perspective, from the masqueraders' perspective, how did you feel about the new route and, I guess, the first stage doing too well, in the words of Bryce? How did you feel?
Myself, personally, I missed the first stage, so I was kind of happy to have the Mass on the Move stage. My own fault. But the challenge that I came across with the second judging point was not having, and this was feedback that was submitted by masqueraders as well in the survey, was the signage or lack thereof to let people know that this was a judging point. That would have been helpful to get everybody kind of cleared out. That would have, I think, assisted with the marshalling and the securing of the route as well. An elevated stage to show the performance would have been something that would have been nice, at least, to Bryce's point, getting everybody. I remember somebody coming through the section and saying, we're going to do this on the stage, so make sure you're partnered up with somebody, blah, blah, blah. And then it wasn't until I watched the YouTube video to see my section crossing the stage that I was like, oh my gosh, wow, if we had that route cleared, that would have been so much better. That would have looked so much better, So it's a double-edged sword, because I do feel like our band moved relatively quickly out of the CNE grounds, which is great. I really felt positive that all of the bands were going to get out and be judged. But coming off of the second stage it took up, I think, the better part of the half an hour to get off of the stage, because we came to like a 3-meter wide gap, where we're just lined with people that were non-masqueraders, and you're trying to fight through this crowd to get off the stage, with a backpack on and stuff like that. So that was really disheartening, but you have to try different things, to Bryce's point, to see what's going to work. And I appreciate the effort just to try the second stage to see, The hope was to keep the bands together moving down the road, which in effect we did in the CNE. However, the challenge is always going to be the actual lakeshore stretch. What are you going to do to secure that? In our opinion, and based on the feedback, that lakeshore stretch is always going to be the issue, and that's where the focus should be in terms of like media and promoting, the message through the media. You have a media budget. This is what, you're paying for it. This is what should be said.
Right.
This is how we should market this. This is what we want to see. The term jump up, that tells everybody that this is a party. No, this is people that have worked hard all year, scrimped and scraped, their little pennies from Christmas or whatever, to buy their costume. And, you want to make sure that the competition aspect of it is recognized, because, again, it is a competition.
For sure. So just an open-ended question. Is it on the band leaders or the FMC to, I guess, inform the masqueraders? How you said, like, you needed more signage. Is that really on the FMC, or is it on the individual band leaders to, because I know how, Bryce, you had mentioned, you actually went to certain sections and brought them forward. So is that something that we need signage from the FMC to say, okay, it's big and bold, or is it on each individual band leader to inform the masqueraders?
I would answer that. I mean, based on what Janelle is saying now, we would have to ensure that wherever we are planning our stage and working with the TMBA, that we can say, okay, fine, having all the parade operations, making so, okay, fine, stage here, etc. So
Right.
we'd have to work together and sort of use the correct terminology to ensure that masqueraders are prepared. Because I know you hear the DJ say, "Get in your section," blah blah blah. So going forward, that is something that when we have to talk about signage, if that is what's going to make the difference and make, as you say, help in the movement of the parade and ensure that the presentation, because one thing I have to tell you, people, they hear about the parade, but they do not know about the judging and appreciate how important it is, as Janelle mentioned, that, people have spent their time, they look at the creativity, and that's what is amazing about this festival, is the creativity that is presented. And it's a creativity that is so intrinsic in the people who create the costumes that it has to be something that has to be appreciated and presented properly.
I agree. So again, this is a special discussion based around Toronto Carnival on CHOY 105 with a panel of distinguished guests such as Bryce from the TMBA and Carnival Nations, the winning 2014 Band of the Year. Congratulations, King.
Thank you.
And Denise from the FMC, Janelle from the TMBA, just pushing it up for Carnival Nations and Nikwana. So we'll come back and talk more about the Carnival experience to get a better insight. So stay tuned. More music is coming up, brought to you by the 90s Fete, right here on CHRY 105.5.
You're listening to CHRY 105.5.
5.5 Soca Therapy, a very special edition. The segment sponsored by the 90s Fete, coming up this Friday at The View. Log on to ticketgateway.com to get your early bird tickets, and we'll make sure we give Moxwin a good plug after this discussion. We're here once again talking about the state of Toronto Carnival, and I was looking at some social media questions when people were hashtagging Soca Therapy and Respect the Mass and trying to see, how everybody's feeling. And I don't want to get distracted by, some people like, well, how come it's only Bryce? Why isn't there another band leader? Or how come, or how come the Caravana Arts Committee isn't here? And I think really and truly we need to get focused on what we can control right now. Bryce is the head of the TMBA, in addition to being the band leader of the winning band, Carnival Nation. So I just really wanted to, the reason why I asked Bryce or Marcus was to get one unified voice from the TMBA, as opposed to having 4 band leaders and then nobody from the FMC, or all masqueraders and no, you know what I mean? And down the road, we'll bring in somebody from the Steel Pan Association as well, because I think we need more than one conversation. It's going to be very difficult to come up with a wide range a wide array of solutions in this one episode of Soca Therapy. So for me, I guess the next question I have to you, Denise, first from the FMC is, what defines a successful carnival to you?
A successful carnival would mean that the proponents, the people who portray the cultural aspects of the carnival, that they do it in a way that not only educates, but educates, entertains, and brings some matter of appreciation, some cultural appreciation. From the audience point of view, it would be people who see and appreciate and it's almost like a year's effort or more that goes into the creating of either the costumes or the musical performances all the time. So from the audience point of view, to me, success is people knowing about what goes into making this festival and displaying their appreciation of it.
Mm-hmm. And Denise, I'd like to publicly thank you as well for even being a part of this, because I know the FMC hasn't done a lot of interviews post this past Toronto Carnival. So thank you for being a part of this as well. The FMC manages exactly what? It's not just the Grand Parade. I know Bryce had mentioned the King and Queen show as well. Could you just talk about the other things for the people that don't really know what the FMC actually manages and what else you produce?
Okay. So for this year, we had a number of events. And what's really great about our festival is the fact that we have remained pure to the model of Carnival.
Mm-hmm.
So we've got the 3 stakeholder groups that participate. Now, we do not produce the Pan Alive, but we do support the Pan Alive competition. We do not produce the Calypso shows, but we do support those shows. In addition to the traditional shows of the King and Queen, the Junior Carnival to me, and the Family Day, which is so important because at least it is exposing the culture to a younger group of people. We moved it to a new location this year, and as Bryce talked about it, I think it worked really well. And although the day when it happened, it was a rainy day, but people stayed. What we are growing that show to be is a child-focused show, so that the performers, the MCs, everyone who are in that parade would be our children. So we have those traditional carnival activities, and then we've got some others. We've got art, we've got artistic presentations. Like this year, the Patterson Group had a digital art exhibition. We collaborate with the Black Artist Network and Dialogue to have a show. We also collaborate with the Caribbean Tales to have a film festival. So we are doing things that would bring together so many other cultural aspects, just to support what we see is our creative end, and it expands and it transcends so many different areas.
Okay. And Bryce, from your perspective, I know you've attended carnivals all over the world. What city or country would you say actually has it right? Like, who should we model our Toronto Carnival parade after?
Well, I wish I could say Trinidad, because of the fact that everybody does it. And it's funny because Trinidad, when I grew up, I was one of the people who used to jump in Poison without a costume, right? Because it was pretty much open. And then you quickly realize, when people watch you and stuff, like, what you doing here. And the evolution of Tribe and the all-inclusive band kind of got Trinidadians to more respect the mass. And in the last how many years, people have now, if you're a non-masquerader, you don't jump in a band. Like, that off the top, you're going to get licks. you know, the security will give you licks. If you go and complain to the police will then beat you and tell you, I hope you learn your lesson. You understand? Because it's indigenous. People understand it. So there's a rope. Sometimes there's not even a rope. And you find people, non-masqueraders, on the outside looking at it. And they don't dare step in, right? Or they step in running, you know, because they know, you know, what coming. I think we have to model ourselves more behind something like Miami, you know. I wish there were certain elements that we could get on the road, like a bar. But that's a whole different story. But if we look at the way that Miami runs their festival, they have certain touch points where they start to weed out the non-masqueraders. You know, it's North America, so we have to kind of accept that, you know, we're going to need, especially in our festival, we're going to need a certain amount of enforcement. It's unfortunate, but that's the point where we're at, where we're going to have to get the law enforcement more involved and more engaged in the festival, because right now they're onlookers. You know, they're tasked with just, I'm not getting involved, I just here to make sure nothing major happen. And we have to change that mindset. You know, there was some stuff which happened in the past which put them in that position. You know, we have to kind of engage them. And I think that's part of the task of the FMC and stuff, is to get them understanding that how we need their help. You know, we need their help to basically clear the route for everybody's safety. Because at the end of the day, you know, I had to pull people off the generator, you know, again. And they don't understand. People looking at me and saying, I want to jump up on the generator. And I looking at somebody, this is exactly the position where somebody was at last year. And look what happened to them. But they don't understand. You know, they don't understand that kind of stuff. And it's a besides the insurance, it's a risk to everybody. You know, because when this happens multiple times, somebody's going to shut this thing down. Right. You know, so people have to understand that how, you know, you have to basically stand up on the outside. So I applaud people who come down and want to watch the festival as a spectator. You know, I thank those people for putting their money in and stand up on the side and watching it and respecting it. The ones who are in the bands, you know, I don't have any respect for them. You know, I think they need to understand and look at themselves, because when things start to go negative, and I hate to talk about negativity and stuff like that, but we have to address it because it's out there. You know, there are people watching the festival, and Denise could tell you this, and they want the festival to fail. You know, our people, the same people who call in and say, why Bryce here by themselves? You understand? I am the president of the TMBA for 4 years, and I don't think I ever mentioned Carnival Nations in this interview at all. Right? So I try to be collective. And if you ask any band leader for the 4 years I've been doing this, you know, I put the collective forward, because together, you know, we'll do better things. So we have to engage and understand that for the festival to grow, you know, we have to get rid of this individual little pickiness, this kind of Mako mentality that let's call it. You know, get rid of that strippiness. And if we get the police engaged, people who are on the festival route who are not supposed to be there, get off. You know, buy a costume or stand up on the side and watch. Right. You know, go to another carnival and get your licks. And then understand.
Okay, let's not promote getting licks. But, okay, no, from your perspective, I mean, you mentioned Tribe, and my sister, you know, plays mass with them, and I've seen they have different levels of security within the band, right? They have an extraction crew that have, you know, vests that it's their job to go through and pull people who are not part of the band. They actually have their own security, and then, as you say, then there's the police. Yeah. So there's different levels. So if we are saying it would be nice to get it like Tribe, then do the band leaders have an onus to provide their own security, in addition to, as you mentioned, getting the police engaged as well?
Well, we've done that. You know, we've been down that road. We've had the fence. You know, I ain't going to get into the dollars to get a fence that wraps around.
No, but if you could, because I think there's a lot of people who don't know how much that would, you know?
It's significant dollars. I mean, like, you're spending money on a fence which wraps a band of 2,000 plus people. Right. You know, to keep them in, you know, each square foot of a fence is a dollar amount. Right? You think about that. You think about, you get a fence that wraps everybody around. You now have to get 200 security to hold the fence. So multiply 200 by how much you know a security guy is charged. You understand? You're in 5 digits already. Right? A band in Toronto cannot sustain that. That's why we stopped doing it. Okay. You know, we did it for about 3 years. Jamal used to do it. He stopped. It's just not feasible. You know, you're putting yourself in a hole right off the beginning. And as much as we want to secure the masqueraders on that level, you know, and people come and say, well, where's the fence? Number one, we get negative because people say you're banning a fence. Like, that's disrespectful to the onlookers. They can't see the mask. Number two, some masqueraders feel like they're caged in. You know, why we in a fence? We're trying to secure you. And then on top of that is the financial burden. You know, it becomes something where, you know, you have to opportunity costs. And at the end of the day, it's not practical as a band to do something like that. You know?
So Janelle, from the masquerader's perspective, do you think you would want to actually pay more money for your costume to have that type of level of security, or is that something that you feel the security that is present on the route right now is adequate enough and you're comfortable with that? What is, I guess, some of the feedback you've gotten?
For me, I mean, the cost of a costume, it's going up and up and up. So, I mean, in terms of cost, would I be willing to? Me personally, maybe not. It's an individual choice. But I feel that the organizing bodies that are in place right now have a duty to provide a minimum standard. And if at that point there needs to be additional support, that should be provided. I think the masqueraders, we're fulfilling our part. We're showing up. We're in costume. We'll wear whatever wristbands you want. We'll line up. We'll go to the CNE, whichever entrance you want. We'll do that. We'll show up and put on the show that you want. If you're going to have the numbers of people in your band, then yes, maybe there's some more collaboration that could be done between the two governing bodies, the TMBA and the FMC, to say, hey, you know what? We've got this much money. What can we do to amp up the security? How can we get to Bryce's point, the police services engaged? And, you know, try and bridge that relationship with our community. Historically, that's been a very negative, kind of combative relationship.
Right.
So that's an opportunity there to engage them.
But as Bryce said, I'll let you chime in, Bryce.
Yeah, so, and I just wanted to clarify something, because as you were saying about clarity and transparency, the job of the TMBA, and I'll just put this out there, the job of the TMBA is to get from a band launch to costumes to a band on the road. Okay. So our job is to walk into the festival and put on costumes with music, accompanying music, and have a band of 200, 2,000, whatever the case is, flowing down the festival. We provide a level of security which is called marshals and stuff. You know, some bands pay additional security. I know those bands. Right, but the securing of the festival is not the TMBA nor the TMA's responsibility. We are part of the solution to try to secure the festival, but the onus in terms of the overall welfare is not our responsibility. You know, we are there to put on the show, right? To bring we are the football players walking into the field. The stadium is not my concern, right?
Okay.
In terms of the actual logistics, I assume that there is proper management and securing going on, but we are the football players walking to play a game.
Okay, so I guess this goes to the one running the stadium, so to speak, with that analogy. So Denise from the FMC, do you think there's adequate security? I mean, that sounds like a loaded question, but I mean, with what has transpired this year, coming across like one of the worst years when it comes to stormers, and people just invading the parade route. Again, I'm not privy to the information knowing how much, you know, money is allocated towards private security and police and so on. So in your opinion, I guess going into it, was it adequate enough? Like, how did it get to this point where it unraveled so poorly, I guess?
Well, from hindsight, it shows that it unraveled. But in terms of the planning and ensuring that, you know, you would have had security, etc. In fact, we got a new security firm which came on this year because there were requirements for us to create some very, very stringent security plans that was based on the requirements that the police asked of us. But I know definitely going forward, when you looked at what happened, I mean, I was watching the parade from the Rose Garden, and I was very, very distressed, knowing the fact that, you know, we walked the route with security, the security company. We walked from Jameson Avenue up to Strawn Avenue through Exhibition Place and back, looking at all the points where we told, you know, we were saying, okay, these are the you know, the weak points. We need to have so and so happening here. So we have to revisit based on what has happened this year, and make sure, as being the producing festival, you know, the stakeholders, the TMBA, the masqueraders, they come and they do their job. So it's important for us to make sure that when they do their job, that they are given the best opportunities to do it. And we definitely have to revisit and really, you know, with input from the TMA and the TMBA and any other person who is involved, to make sure that we improve and people are not in the position they were in this year.
Yes, for sure. Because it was definitely a rough position for a lot of people. We're still seeing a lot of the feedback, and I'm sure Janelle could talk more about that with the survey. I actually saw pictures online of, you know, women being, you know, sexually assaulted and abused, and bruises and so on, you know, from being accosted walking through and so on. So to get to that level, you know, like, I understand, as Bryce had mentioned, about the wire cutters and so on. And if this actually happened at the Molson Indy, I'm assuming that once somebody sees somebody cutting through, they will nip that in the bud. But going down the parade route and seeing a perfectly cut circle, I don't understand how that was able to be done without some level of security saying, okay, stop. You know, you're not supposed to cut the fence. As opposed to trying to stop hundreds or thousands of people going through that. Because at that point, you're right, it's like you can't stop it. But before when you're actually seeing the cutting happening, as Bryce had mentioned, there's cameras overhead. I guess for me, I'm a little ignorant. I don't understand how we couldn't stop that from the get-go. You know what I mean?
Well, I think in the FMC's defense, no security company can accost anybody. And
no, it wasn't security that did that. Yeah.
No. What I mean is, when they see the fence,
okay,
a security guy is not going to stop 400 people jumping through a fence. You know, even if he tries to stop them, he could get charged with assault. You understand? There's certain things that if he puts his hand on somebody and they complain, you know, that's the laws of the country. That's why you need somebody in authority that people would listen to, which is the police. You know, you need somebody there who stands up by the hole and says, you come through here, you get arrested or something like that. You know, and then people will kind of backtrack and say, okay. But a security guy, you know, nobody's going to listen. They don't listen. And traditionally, unfortunately, they don't have that kind of respect. And that's what happened. So they back off. I mean, we have pictures from last year, security guys standing up right there and the fence open and, you know, people walking right through. Okay. It's the weak points in the there's weak points in the, and those guys know it. And unfortunately, until you get them to understand that, you know, if you're a basketball player and you're playing a basketball game and you're about to score the winning point and a whole heap of people run on the court, you'd be upset. You know, if you're in any sport, or if you're doing something and you're about to climax with something, whatever, and somebody come and interrupt you'll be upset, right? So take that mentality and put it on the parade day. You know, you are the person who are now interfering with what other people are enjoying,
right,
that they paid for. Right, and if you want to do it and you want to be on the parade route, I encourage you, because there's 10,000 masqueraders and 1 million people coming down. To me, those numbers don't make sense to begin with.
Right.
If there's 1 million people coming down, why don't we have 100,000 masqueraders? You know, why is it not that people aren't being converted from spectators to masqueraders? Right, that's a whole, you know, and it's not for lack of trying. It's because people know that I could just come on the parade route, so I don't have to spend any money. Right. So we need to get all those things in play, where, you know, if you want to be on the parade route, get a costume.
Okay. All right. We're just having a open discussion about the state of Toronto Carnival with Bryce from the TMBA, Denise from the FMC, and Janelle from the TMA. And we'll continue this discussion, all brought to you by the 90s Fed, happening this Friday at The View. It's a pajama jammy jam, and you can get more information at ticketgateway.com.
Toronto's finest broadcast ambassadors are right here. Shake up your radio experience. Stay tuned to CHRY 1055. We have more.
Friday, the 22nd of August at The View, 195 Galaxy Boulevard. Music like this, taking you back. It's coming up with the Pajama Jammy Jam, that 90s Fed, presented by Marksman from the Planet X Wake Up Show, with the best in all 90s music featuring the Marksman: Jester, Bandit, White Boy, Lindo P, Junior Menace, Chris Chetty, DJ Jeff, and Kid Cut. Early bird tickets are only $15, and you could visit ticketgateway.com for more info on that. And right now, we're dealing with some info concerning the state of Toronto Carnival. And we're here with Bryce from the TMBA, as well as Carnival Nations. And we're here with Denise, the CEO of the FMC, and Janelle from the TMA. And I guess we'll start with Janelle this time. What would you say are some of, I guess, moving forward, what is one or two of the goals of the TMA moving forward? So over the next year, because as Denise had said, and Bryce has mentioned too, it's practically a year to get ready for the following. So as, I guess, an organization representing the masqueraders, what are some of your goals moving forward?
Some of the things that we want to focus on specifically is the education piece. You know, you're hearing a lot of, all three of us have echoed how important that is to the community. So we definitely want to be a voice for that. We want to be a group that can help do that on behalf of the other two groups and work together, you know, really get the messages out there, really engage with the community leaders as well, you know, just, you know, non-for-profit groups, things of that nature, just to help with the education piece. We do a, you know, did you know section on our page where we post, you know, traditional jab mask, traditional, you know, midnight robber and all of that stuff, you know, old school Juve stuff, just to educate the younger generation that, you know, maybe my generation, we now have kids and, you know, they're getting involved. My son doesn't know anything about midnight robber. It's my job to educate him, just as my parents educated me, right? So we definitely want to be a voice for that, and as well liaising with the FMC with respect to the planning and execution of the parade, and just having insight and visibility and being able to be transparent with the people that support our cause, to give them information and more of an insight into the process as well. We have a few other things as well, keeping in line with our mandate, but the biggest piece for our mandate would be the education.
Okay, and I know you have town hall meetings and stuff. How can people get more information on when these will be taking place?
You visit our page on Facebook, Toronto Masqueraders Association. We have a brand new page, so like us, because we like you. So you can definitely follow us on Instagram at TO Mask Players, Twitter at TO Mask Players. All of the information is posted there first. Sometimes we don't even talk to each other before we put stuff up there, so you're getting it late breaking news. So we'll definitely be posting on the town hall meeting that we're going to have for this year, and we're hoping that Bryce and Denise and yourself as well will attend, and, you know, members of OSA, the Calypsonians. It's everybody. We don't want to exclude any group. We want to include everybody and make an overall, you know, cultural impact and make sure that we're preserving that. So it involves everybody. So we'll be definitely posting shortly, actually, on when that's going to take place.
Okay, well, thank you for playing your part as well. And Bryce, from the TMBA's perspective, what are your goals for the, I guess, next year?
Well, I think our main goal is to try to maintain at least the upward swing in masqueraders. It's a tough battle when you experience a bad, you know, festival as it's, you know, the negativities, because you work so hard to get people to play mass. As I said, you know, the pool is very limited. You know, there's 10,000 people out of 1 million. So when you lose that one person, they normally pull a few other people with them, right? And you have to get that back. So, you know, I thought we did a good job in attracting people to the, you know, on an upward, on an incline. And I think our goal would be to get people, you know, that who may be on the fence, you know, for them to give the festival another try, as well as to pull from new areas, you know, which is what I always tell the association, you know, like there's a pool that will play from our community. There's millions of people here that we have to reach out to, you know, and there's tons of people that I talk to and they're like, oh yeah, I like that, you know, I always see these costumes, you know, I just never go down, and I try to get them into the band or come down and see what's going on. And that's where we have to kind of grow the festival. You know, as Janelle said, the kids that are growing up, besides them, there's other people. So for us, I think that's one, is to the masquerader level. And the other thing is the security. You know, it's something that we beat year after year. I remember I did this exact interview with Jai 10 years ago.
Right,
you know, it's something that we beat. You know, like, we need to get the securing of the festival, the masqueraders, you know, those issues of women being accosted, etc. It upsets me as a band leader to hear in my band something like that happens, or in another band, you know, because we work so hard, you know, to get people there. And if the festival was like the Santa Claus parade, you know, it would be something spectacular, you know, as opposed to here's one costume, 1,000 non-masqueraders. You know, it's unfair to the people who pay their money to come and see it. It's unfair to the television, the press. You know, you could imagine what they go back and tell people in their studios. You know, like, they'll probably shake their head. You know, so for us, it's a wake-up call. You know, otherwise we're going to lose the festival. You know, and if you think that the city is going to miss us, ask Denise. They're going to laugh. They'll say that we'll put something else.
Right.
You know, they'll be like $500 million, okay. You know, but there's other people right behind you who want what you do, and we will gladly give it to them because it's less work for us. So if you think that people will miss us, you know, think again.
And I mean, unfortunately, we've seen other carnivals go down that road. Hamilton, Barrie Carnival, they're non-existent now, right? So Denise, from the FMC's perspective, what would you say, I guess, you're working towards and some goals for the next year moving forward?
Definitely addressing the major issues that were raised here. Last year, when Janelle came and met us right after the festival, we made the decision that the TMA was a group that we hadn't even considered in our planning. And in going forward, we've had them engaged. This year, looking at the strategies that you all are going to do, we definitely have to work and make sure that we collaborate very strongly, much more closely with you and continue that relationship. I have Bryce on my right. We know we are tied almost at the hip when we are doing our planning, and seriously, we meet with them. They have expressed their concerns, and we have put some plans in action that we are going to start working on together. So important, as Bryce says, that we have to appreciate ourselves, appreciate the value that we bring, and appreciate the value that this festival brings to us emotionally, spiritually, and financially. And for all the complaints, I would tell people, put your money where your mouth is. Go buy a costume. Come and support people in one way or the other. This year, what we did with one of our grants that we got from the province, it's a competitive grant, and the purpose of this grant was to visit mass camps. And what we did, and we got 4 mass camps participating: Carnival Nations, Connections, Tribal Nights, and the Sardina. And what we did, we did a tour, and we took senior citizens to those camps. And the feedback that I got was that the effort that the band leaders made to educate these people, it was absolutely amazing. These people were from seniors' homes, and they came out, and they were educated. They had fun in the mass camps. Now we're hearing some of them want to volunteer. Mm-hmm. So here we have not only our children being involved, but our seniors. I mean, we go across the border in this festival, which is unique in any given festival in the city. We cover from babies to seniors. And for us to lose what we have through the irrational behavior of some people, that's not good. So it's very important for us going forward that we really work closely together, all the stakeholders, and with the TMA, making sure that we do our education, and we just have to be very, very vigilant as we go forward.
Mm-hmm. I guess, as you had mentioned, Denise, that you and the TMBA had discussed a lot of these things that were happening with the Grand Parade. I don't know if you could include all of us in this type of conversation, but is this new route going to stay, and we're going to try to fix what went wrong with it, or is it something where we're going back? Because I know, Bryce, at one point you had mentioned you think that we just have to go back to basics, so to speak. I guess moving forward, I know a lot of people would just like to have some clarity and understand, okay, well, this is what we're looking towards. I mean, nothing is set in stone. Obviously, there's a lot of planning and meetings that have to take place. But I know at one point there was a lot of finger pointing and people saying, well, why did the FMC do this? And it's almost like the mass bands didn't know. And then the mass bands are like, well, da-da-da-da. And people are saying, well, the mass band should have said this. So I guess what I'm just trying to understand is, moving forward, where do you see the actual parade route going? Because as you said, Bryce, this is the climax. So I don't want to just, we had success with Kitty's Carnival, moving to Malvern. I know a lot of, even though it rained, a lot of kids had a ball. The King and Queen, as you had mentioned, went off amazing. Pana Live, I heard the numbers weren't great, but again, a great spectacle of the culture there. So with the Grand Parade, with the route in particular, what do you see happening to that moving forward?
Well, there's always an option, an alternative that we could explore. Same Lakeshore, maybe a different setup, whatever the case is.
Okay.
The route that we have right now, I think it's a good route in the sense that where we assembling and where we're starting from is probably the optimal point within the CNE. Last year the assembly area was kind of tight. It had some, maneuvering of trucks issues and stuff. I think where it assembled this year, everybody, and the length in the parade, as Janelle had mentioned early on, a lot of masqueraders like that because at the end of the day, the most secure area we have is within the CNE.
Right.
I call the CNE or heaven I call when as soon as we get through those gates, the war zone. and I'm serious. I mean, I tell people that. We're heading into the war zone, so get prepared. I don't want to have to pull my trucks, which is what I do. I tell them to accelerate a little and go through that area as fast, so that small narrow junction, so that we could get into the wide area because it's going to get congested. I want people to enjoy themselves. So I think the route that we have, the starting point, where it comes down, goes down through BMO, wraps around and stuff like that, all the way to that weak link, which is the British Columbia Jameson area, that is fine. From that point onwards is where the issue that we have to take. The positioning of the judging stage at that point, we know now is not going to work. That has to change. And that's why I said back to basics. We know 2 points that the judging has worked in the past, either across from Direct Energy or as soon as you make the bend off of Newfoundland, is it, onto the Lakeshore. We had it there a little close up by Ontario Place parking lot. And it's worked there as well. But there's still encroachment, but we have a better control of that area. So I think there's that, and then there's one alternative that we've started kind of toying with, which we're not going to get into, but we're always thinking of what could be better.
Okay. I guess in conclusion, because I know we have Radio Migrante coming in at the top of the hour, and we still have a commercial break to go. So I guess on behalf of each one of your respective organizations, what do you see as a solution to what has become a major issue? And I believe we all agree that we don't want to see Toronto Carnival end up as a Barrie or as a Hamilton where it's just null and void and we have to talk about, well, what went wrong? We have a chance to rectify it now. So when it comes to solutions, we could start with Janelle from the Toronto Masqueraders Association. What do you see as a solution to this major problem?
Well, definitely changing the route. I'm interested and kind of excited to hear what is coming in place and what discussions have been had. That's, for me as a masquerader, that's the most important piece for me, Well, second, I have to find my DJ, and then I find, wherever. But definitely the route itself, and how are we securing that lower portion? My mother and my son were at British Columbia driving, couldn't see me. I couldn't get through the crowd to get my little pail and my little styrofoam container, take a bottle of water. It was
right.
So I'm looking forward to seeing the changes with how the route is going to be executed for the next year, and we would love to tag along for a walkabout to see exactly how those plans are going to unfold.
Okay. And Denise, from the FMC standpoint, I guess same question. As a solution moving forward, what do you see?
The main solution for us, the focus for us is to have a route that offers the masqueraders, the TMBA, anybody who is supposed to be on the route, for them to put on the show that's required. More importantly, from going forward, is to ask members of our community to start having that conversation with each other. People talking about how important this festival is to us, and trying to encourage people in terms of changing behaviors, contributing to the importance of our culture, whether it means participating in a band, volunteering, etc. To me, when you have that kind of engagement, passion is great, but we also need the support to ensure that if we really and truly want this festival to succeed, we are all in it together.
Okay, and Bryce?
Well, I think at the end of the day, I have faith that we can get through the management logistics issues that we've had in the last couple of years, because we've seen now what could work in terms of filtering of bands and etc. And so that part I like to park with the FMC and the TMBA would have that discussion in the TMA, etc. What I want to see is that people basically man up. You know what I mean? Like recognize the festival that you like and stop killing the festival that you like, because when it's gone, it's gone. It ain't gonna come back. All right. So at the end of the day, you need the people out there, specifically talking to the non-masqueraders. You need to recognize what it is that you're doing to your own festival. If you like the festival so much, don't kill the festival. You understand? If you want a party, you have a party on Saturday and Sunday, Friday, go in a party. If you want to see mass, and if you want to learn how the rest of the world appreciates mass, from Brazil to Trinidad, etc., then go on YouTube and understand that how in Rio you have stands. Nobody allowed, no non-masquerader allowed within that mass area. In Trinidad, non-masqueraders not allowed. Respect that, as the TMA says. So understand what your place is. If you choose to be a non-masquerader, if you choose to be a spectator, be a spectator. Understand what that role is within the whole festival. And if you do what you're supposed to do, and we do what we're supposed to do, and Jay does what he's supposed to do, and the FMC does what they're supposed to do, this festival will be positive. It will be appreciated. People will come back. You won't see on the New Yorkers talking about this, other people and stuff like that. It will be the best, because at the end of the day, we have everything else in place. You have the mass bands, you have the DJs, the music trucks. That's why people come here. You have the environment. They love Toronto. They have the exchange rate that working in their favor, so they're coming back, they're flocking back, right? But if we're killing it ourselves, then at the end of the day, nobody's going to come back. And the festival will die. And the politicians will smile, because there are people in there who just waiting for this to fail.
So quick question. You mentioned Brazil. Again, I don't know how feasible this is, but is that even an option to actually go in a Rico Coliseum, for instance, and just everybody could pay, the masqueraders go in, do a couple laps within and get to showcase? Is that something that could potentially work? Or do something, as you mentioned, Miami, where you have the route, but it ends up into a park or some type of a paying facility that, if, as you said, if you want a party, or even as some people mentioned on the TMA page, we're having 2 days, 2 days of mass, where one is, as Carnival Monday is more the relaxed, and the Carnival Tuesday is more of the, you have to respect. So is that something that we could do in Toronto? Is that even feasible to have 2 days of this parade then?
Yeah, I think all the suggestions are worth exploring. The 2 days might be tough because of the city. Mm-hmm. That's Denise on my left here. That would be their job to sell in. I think it's good because it extends. You know what I mean? It extends the visitor stay, so the multiplier effect on the economy, becomes bigger if people have to stay an extra day. The reversing of the route is something that might work. We see it in Miami, and it does work. But there's a level of, once again, police engagement in that to get that to work.
Okay.
And as well as we, funny enough, have had the discussion of just going in a stadium and spinning around in a circle. I don't particularly like that. But if that creates the tone where people will go in stands, just like the King and Queen, and remove themselves from the bands and let the bands participate, and force people, if you want to participate and jump up and stuff, and then put on a costume, and come in. Costumes aren't expensive. It's $200. Mm-hmm. Start saving now at $10 a week. You could buy a front line.
Right.
You understand? People have to understand this. Educate yourself. Go out, check the websites. Go to the Toronto Mass Bands Association website. You'll have all the listings of the bands there, Facebook pages, etc., and investigate. Don't just feel that your only option is to come down there and jump a fence. You wouldn't jump a fence in anything else. You wouldn't jump a fence in the ACC to go and see Beyonce or get,
right,
etc.
Sure.
So, and I've seen it. This last point. I've seen it where things have evolved to the point where people respect. Trinidad is a perfect example. Hooliganism in football is a perfect example. Things could evolve if people just realize their role in the whole thing. And you could be, if you think you want to be on the parade route, and you don't want to put on a costume, find a band, because we're always looking for volunteers. Jay looking for somebody to glue stuff on his thing. I know that, right? In
Right,
your
of
section,
course.
people could come in a mass camp. You know, some people have never visited a mass camp, as Denise would say. You know, but they come in parade and they want to talk about Caribana is my thing or Carnival is my thing. Come in a mass camp and see and get involved. We have people who walk in all the time and all of a sudden they're there. You know, and sometimes they have sections. You know, they get involved.
True.
So man up.
So Denise, I guess if you could chime in on the same thing, like I don't know if any of the things I said were actually feasible, or are these things that you see as the head of the FMC that could work or as potential solutions?
Well, one thing we always have to take into consideration is that we are using other people's facilities.
Right.
So whatever happens in terms of our planning, we just have to make sure that whatever we do can be done feasibly, and just working together as with all the different groups. Let's wait and see.
And
Once we get to our planning, we can come back and we can have the conversation.
And next year is going to be a different year because next year is Pan Am Games.
Yes.
So be cognizant of the fact that they ain't going to tolerate too much
Right.
from
Yes.
us because they have big games going on in Toronto. So
Yeah.
Very true. Well, this has been a great discussion. I'm by all means not a talk show host. I just want to play music, but I definitely thank you, Denise, from the FMC, and Bryce from the TMBA, and of course, Janelle and Michelle from the TMA for coming down and having this discussion. I think I want to do this again because I believe, as all of you had mentioned, education is key. And for years, I've been doing radio for, I don't know, over 20 years, from as far back as Jai, as Bryce had mentioned, and it's something where I've always just wanted to entertain. That's why it's Soca Therapy. We have so much stress going on in our work week. You just want to play music and have fun. But this Toronto Carnival that just passed was so bad for so many people. I felt the need to just talk today. And I've never done that before on any station I've worked at. So I definitely thank each one of you guys for, taking your Sunday evening out and having this discussion with us. I definitely appreciate it. I believe I think I'm going to have to post this probably on our SoundCloud and let people also comment and move forward and probably have this again, because I think it's an important discussion to be had. We can invite other voices. Taking away from this, I believe we'll probably have to engage the police, I suppose, or, to try to, as Bryce and Denise had mentioned, to get them more engaged, because the security company, in my own personal dealings, they didn't seem to know much. They seemed to be very clueless as to where things were, what they were supposed to do. Again, I don't know if I was talking to a head, but just individual, and that is a major problem, So I think moving forward, I definitely thank you guys, and I think everybody listening wants to see the carnival succeed, and we all need to work together to make it happen, because as you said, 2015 Pan Am Games is very serious. The city is very invested in it. And, Toronto Carnival is going to have to step up in order to make sure that we don't end up like a Hamilton or a Barrie, where it's just a footnote and people say, boy, I remember when. We don't want Toronto to be that, So thank you, Denise. Thank you, Bryce. Thank you, Janella, Michelle. Definitely appreciate
You're
that.
welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you for having
Thank
us.
you.
All right.
Pay attention. Whether it's for the jump up or the sweet sounds of the island, CHRY 1055 is your best source for Caribbean culture on the FM dial. Tune in to 1055 to get the best delivery in Calypso.
Audrey, when you get that sugar, darling, there is nothing sweeter.
Don't rock me so, baby, don't rock it so. Oh, you're driving me loco. Don't rock me so, baby, don't rock it so.
Our DJs and on-air hosts represent the best musical selectors and the most dedicated cultural ambassadors across your city. Proudly keep your ears tuned to CHRY throughout the week. We run this. CHRY 1055. 1055.
Toronto, you love reggae.